Hi, I'm Linda from CutSewQuiltRepeat.com, and the next step in our process for making this 9-patch quilt is, now that we've got the blocks sewn together and the quilt top pieced, now we're going to actually quilt it. So I'm going to take you to my long arm quilting machine. I know not everybody has a long arm, but that's what I have to work with, so I'm going to show you some things that I'm going to do on the long arm. We're going to do a very simple design, and it's also something you could do if you have a regular sewing machine using free motion quilting. So let's get started. So today we're going to quilt the quilt top. Now I've got what they call a long arm machine, which is a machine that I can mount the quilt, the batting, and the backing all on one machine, and then I drive my sewing machine. This is a special sewing machine. I drive it with these two handles to do the quilting. You can also quilt on your regular sewing machine, what they often refer to as a domestic sewing machine. You can quilt on that as well, but it's more advantageous in my world because I've got this machine. If I'm going to quilt a small piece, I quilt it on my regular machine. If I've got something large like this, I like the machine. That's why I have a long arm machine, is I can mount the whole quilt up on this machine. So I'm just going to show you some simple ways that I'm going to quilt it. I'm first going to do what they call in the ditch. I'm going to use a ruler, and I've got a hopping foot on here, which is a thicker foot. I'm going to use a ruler to get these lines pretty straight, just to secure the top. I'm going to do the edges, and then I'm going to go along the seam lines just to get the pieces kind of secured to the batting. I'll run through the whole quilt that way. Then I'm going to come back and do some design work in the squares and in the large open areas. So we're going to get started with that, and I'll show you how I'm doing it. So now I'm back at this end where I started. I had basted all the way down, and then I just came back. Let's see if I can show you. Came back and did some basic outline straight stitching along some of these seam lines of the background, and I'm going to continue over here now. I'll show you. I just use a ruler that's technically it's made to make the circles, right? Can you see the circles? But I also, you know, it's right there. You've got a straight edge, so I use the straight edge of it to do the straighter lines. I've got this, what they call a hopping foot, or a template foot, and it's a thicker foot, so you don't run the risk of running over the ruler. I'm just going to hold the ruler in place, press my go button, and slide down the edge until I get to the intersection. Move my ruler, and go along the edge of this block. And then when I get to an outside edge, I can just go pretty quickly down to the next place I want to pick up. And this isn't the most continuous method of quilting, but for this project I want to get everything sort of secured before I get to, I'm going to go down here. Sometimes it helps if you take the time to figure out what your paths are, so you can get the most distance in a straight line as possible, or connected as possible. So I'm going to come down here. Now I know that I can only go out to this edge, so I'm probably not going to make this last stitch this way. At this point, I'm going to show you, I've decided that I'm going to fill these open areas with circles or bubbles. So I'm just going to do big circles that kind of quilt that area together. So in order to do that, I'm going to start and just do this square, and when I get up to this corner or near this corner, I'm going to try and do these straight lines while I'm at it. So I'm just going to move my machine in a way to do a circle. I need to change my speed. Now that I'm free motioning, I need to be a little faster speed than when I was just doing a straight basting, because you go a little slower along those straight edges. So I'm going to go around again on that same line, and then go up halfway, make another circle, around halfway, make another circle, around halfway. Now I'm going to do a smaller circle, and then stop in that corner, stitch out to the edge, and come back and do the straight line that is along that block. I can always come back. So now that I've done that one, I'm going to go ahead and do this one. Then I can fill it in without having to come back through with the ruler. So now I've done those 2 straight edges. Now I'm going to try and make my bubbles a little less consistent in size because I'm going to be going around these shapes. I want to make sure that they're not all consistent so that I can fill in spaces as I need to. I'm going to do a smaller one here. I'm going to do an oval one here. You want to make sure that if you're going to have to do some that are oddly shaped, you start out that way. So that, and if you have to go around more than once to fill in a little space, that's all right. Try and stay on top of your stitching line as much as possible. And I want to make sure I have some ovals because I'm probably going to need to make some ovals, so you may as well start now. So I've got some big bubbles. Now I'm coming into a bigger area. So again, I want to make sure that my bubbles are not super even in size as far as next to each other. Some smaller, some larger. But you don't want to get, if you can avoid it, too small or too large, only because you want to make sure that you're quilting it somewhat consistently. I don't want bubbles that are as big as the big blocks, but I also don't want bubbles that are all tiny in one area and then all really large in another. So I want to remember as I'm working across the quilt that I need to stay fairly consistent in my size of bubbles. It also will suck up, kind of make the fabric a little tighter if you have heavy quilting in one area and light quilting in another. So that gives you an example of what those bubbles look like. So you can see the thread I'm using is a slightly lighter brown than is on the fabric. It helps you see the quilting a little more. You can see those circles now up close. That's what the bubbles look like. So they're, you know, circle around and then another to get to your next place. So you want to complete one full circle and then use the second round or the starter round of the second round to travel to your next spot to make your next bubble. So it's almost like a circle and a half or a circle and a quarter, depending on what you need it to be. So that's the quilting I'm doing in the large background areas, and I'm just going to keep doing that all over the quilt, and then I'll come back and show you what I'm going to do in the colored squares or the printed squares. I changed my mind as I worked back across the quilt this time. I did do all the circles in the background area, but then I decided to do these curved lines in the 9-patch areas. And my goal is to have these curves, they're going to go that way, so there's going to be like a curve shape there and a curve shape there, and then in the middle blocks there'll be 2 curved shapes because then they'll also go the other direction. So that's my plan for the patterned squares that aren't background. So I'm just going to stitch one of those so you can see again how I use that. I want to line the template up. I want to make sure that when I line the template up, and I'm using this oval template, I want to make sure that where the foot is going to go on the outside of the template is going to hit these points. So I don't want it to be, for instance, I don't want to be right on that point because then the foot, which is about a 1/4 inch wide, is going to be out here. So I want to make sure I set that edge about a 1/4 inch from the corner where I want to aim for. And then I'm going to turn on the machine and just stitch along the edge of that template. Just guiding the machine along that way. And then I'm going to come back in this case and again aiming toward where I started. Now I've got that little wedge shape or segment shape there. Now I hadn't done this bottom edge of this block or this one because that was where it had stopped as it was coming forward. That was as far as I could get with the machine, if you'll remember. So now I'm going to do that straight edge. I'm going to move my ruler. I'm actually going to move my ruler to this side, so hopefully you can see it a little better. And stitch up that way. Now I had done this straight edge, so now I can start doing, and turn my feet up a little bit. start doing those circles. And again, just going around the circle, partway around again, and then following a path to where I want the next circle to go. Now I notice, again, as I'm going across, that this edge doesn't have a straight stitch, nor does that one. So I could go in now and put in that straight stitch and then work my way back up. As I work, the nice part is I'm going to be able to get several along this path in straight stitches, so I can go and do a straight, down, across, maybe finish that one and then work, and then when I get to this one, work. So I'm going to work those in as I go. I'm just going to keep quilting now that I rolled it and forwarded it up to the next pass, which is what they call the going across the quilt, the next pass. I'm going to work this pass and then roll it again and work the next pass. I'll continue until the whole quilt is quilted.